Good evening to you, Mark Sott with HurricaneTrack.com here. Hurricane Outlook and discussion time, the evening version. Got a lot to talk about here. Briefly, let's just look at Jose. I don't want to minimize what's happening with Jose, but the bigger story is Maria. The 5 o'clock Eastern Time advisory on Jose, 75 mile per hour winds, pressure 977 moving north at 10 miles per hour. If we look at the forecast for Jose, large wind field associated with it. And this could get close enough up here to the southeast part of Massachusetts, maybe portions of Rhode Island, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, to bring tropical storm conditions. But overall, it is not going to be a big problem other than widespread effects over a pretty big coastal area like a warm, powerful nor'easter would be. So you folks are familiar with that enough that you don't need lecturing from me on exactly what to do or how to react. Just use common sense, please. And I think that everything will be okay. And along the coast down here, winds and seas will eventually subside as Jose moves out of the picture, hopefully. And it'll move over colder water after it gets north of about 35 degrees latitude here, which it's doing now. And it should start to weaken even more so after that as it loses its connection with the very warm waters of the western Atlantic. There's the center of circulation, and you can see there's dry slot really punching in very hard, and the convection and everything is over on the western side. And a decent cloud shield here in eastern North Carolina. I'm still up here in Kitty Hawk recording this video for you. Right about up in there somewhere is Kitty Hawk. So that's what's the deal with Jose. Really not much to worry about with that. The much bigger issue is Hurricane Maria explosively intensifying, and you can just see in the last few frames of this image, it's extraordinary in nature and in meteorology, but very, very dangerous in terms of what's happening, especially because it's happening at night down there. And you can just really see the last couple of frames there becomes much more symmetrical. This outflow here, it kind of like just turns into this buzzsaw. You see that? That look to it right there. In fact, let's just go to the still image of it. I'll move over here and do that. If it'll let me. Come on. And so that shows us that obviously it is getting stronger, and the recon plane will be out there before too long and will verify. But just looking at the satellite imagery of the system, this overall look to it right here, very, very impressive, but not in a good way whatsoever. A fairly round central dense overcast. It's not quite as symmetrical and smoothed edges, and all of this matters. I mean, it could be a Category 5 right now, but the eye hasn't quite cleared out all the way. It's getting there. Very deep convection over here, really indicating an intense hurricane, probably knocking on the door of Category 5 intensity. You have the island of Dominica right here, and this is going to move off to the west-northwest with time, eventually headed towards the U.S. British Virgin Islands. Although, I think that St. Kitts and Nevis, and up here towards Anguilla and St. Martin, and then down here is St. Bartholomew, probably not going to feel too much in the way of nasty impacts from this. But I tell you, you folks here in Puerto Rico, Vieques, Culebra, and St. Croix, this looks absolutely devastating for your area. And I want to look at the key messages here because there's more to this. You can hear the wind here. I'm literally recording this in the front seat of the Tahoe. You might hear all that wind outside. That's the backside of Hurricane Jose. But, okay, so the wind is obviously a real big problem here, but the flash floods and the rainfall here really is problematic. And that's going to be anywhere along the Leeward Islands, but especially in Puerto Rico. Some of the rainfall rates there could exceed 25 inches. So, you know, as far as telling people down there, they should know. But the rest of us here watching from the outside, we need to be ready to respond. You know, Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, and all the resources of the federal government will hopefully be ready to go. Power outages down there could be absolutely staggering. And I guess there's a chance that this hits Puerto Rico as a Category 5. It's, very, very rare for a cyclone to do that anywhere on Earth. But for it to potentially happen in Puerto Rico is just frightening. And so this is really a horrible situation developing here. And people need to react when it's over with compassion and quick, swift action as soon as the weather allows to help these people, because it is going to be terrible. One of those situations that as much as you appreciate and follow the weather like this, a severe part of nature, you see something like this and it's just absolutely gut-wrenching. It really is, especially for me. I don't like to see this at all. Very sad what's going to happen, and terrifying for people that have to go through it. The only advice I can give you, stay to what makes you feel strong, whether it's your faith or your family or all of the above. Hang in there, hunker down, be safe. Make sure you put as much as you can between you and the hurricane in terms of padding, pillows, whatever, and don't be anywhere near the water, for goodness sakes. And just hang together as a community in those areas as best you can, because the aftermath, of course, lingers, obviously, and this is just awful. It really is. And these folks, you have my deepest sympathy and my deepest concerns for your well-being. As far as where this ends up, still very much up in the air, folks. I mean, I wish I could tell you that, yeah, I know it's going to come in and then turn out to sea, or if it's going to come in and hit the United States, I could tell you exactly where, but I can't. I don't know. So much has to do with what happens with Jose and how much ridging tries to build in after Jose is kind of out of the picture, the ridge up here, and does that force this more on a northwesterly course, kind of like we saw with Hugo in 1989? Or will it be more like Fran in 1996? Or will this kind of just turn the corner, kind of like Jose did? It's just, I don't know. And the models are having a tough time, and we'll have to just deal with this over the next few days. But the focus right now, seriously, is going to be down here in the Northeast Caribbean Sea for our fellow friends and, all the nationalities down there. These are people that are going to be impacted, and they will remember this for a long time. I wish I had better news, but I really don't. And this is just one of those moments where you have to sit back in awe, but also in fear of what's happening. And I can't put it any more clear than that. And again, like I said, at this point, it's a survival, situation. And if you're communicating with people down there and they have to stay, I mean, what are you going to do? Evacuate all of Puerto Rico and all of Calabria and all of Vieques and all of St. Croix? No, there's no way to do that. So you have to hunker down and protect your head, your torso, and have as much padding so that stuff doesn't hit you. You don't suffer from blunt force trauma, and try to survive. And if you can get through the hurricane itself, then hopefully help and relief will be on the way after that. And I'm going to emphasize again, the humanitarian suffering that's going to be coming from this, starting tonight, right now with Dominica, is going to be just horrible. We saw it already with Irma in portions of the northern Antilles there, the Northeast Caribbean, from Barbuda through St. Martin and St. Bart's all the way over into the parts of the British Virgin Islands. And now it's happening again. Unbelievable. All right. I'm in Kitty Hawk. Like I mentioned, I'll be home late tonight, and I will put out a video discussion after the 0Z models come out, and then I'll be all over this tomorrow from my office. And I'm probably, once we get within 12 hours or so of landfall for Puerto Rico, I'm going to go live on our site for our subscribers and simulcast that on YouTube from my office so that we can reach as many people as we can and try to get the word out to people, talk about what's going on. That's coming up later as this gets closer to Puerto Rico and the islands between here and Puerto Rico. Maybe this goes for 24 hours. We'll just have to wait and see. But you know what? We live in a world where we can do that. I call that nowcasting, and I can put up satellite images and radar, and I can take questions from people and just basically kind of live amongst the moment as this approaches and goes through the areas of the Northeast Caribbean Sea. Alrighty? Have a good rest of your evening. Sorry to be such the bearer of bad news, but sometimes it is what it is, and we just need to pull together and hope for the best for these folks and be ready to respond. I'm Mark Seth, HurricaneTrack.com, reporting from Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Next time I'll talk to you, it'll be back from my office in Wilmington, and that'll be late tonight. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later on.